This video is sponsored by our friends at Kamikoto. Kamikoto taps into more than 800 years of traditional techniques from Japan to craft incredibly sharp, single bevel knives. These beautiful knives are made from the finest Japanese steel, and they've elevated my cooking game significantly. Each knife comes in a beautiful, heavy-duty ashwood box. They also make for an incredible gift. Each Kamikoto knife goes through a rigorous 19-step process that takes several years from start to finish to complete. Each knife is individually inspected, and Kamikoto is so confident about their knives that each one comes with a lifetime guarantee. These knives are incredible, and you don't have to take my word for it. They have been used by Michelin star chefs all over the world, and if you don't love them, you will get a full refund. Right now, Kamikoto is having their biggest sale of the year. Go to kamikoto.com/Chael. That's going to save $50 off your entire purchase price, or just click the link below. Use the promo code Chael and you will save $50 today. Justin Gaethje, and this is a quote from Jon Anik. Jon Anik said, "Justin Gaethje is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter." And there's a lot of truth to that. And those guys come along very rarely. Do you remember Big Nog, guys? Big Nog was over in Pride. He'd get his ass kicked, come back and win. Or he would get his ass kicked, but he would try to win nonstop. Even the night that Big Nog became the world champion. And by the way, this is a compliment to Big Nog. Even the night he won the world championship over Tim Sylvia, he got hammered and wanted to get the fight to one position and just kept trying. Kept getting clobbered, kept getting beat up, trying to get to one position. He got there and became the world champion. So these guys are special, right? That Arturo Gatti effect, that's real. And Justin Gaethje has it. Now, all these beautiful things I said about Justin, as good as Justin is at fighting, he's equally as bad at media. As good as Justin is at having heart and having grit and being able to walk through anything, he is equally as weak in the department of talking to you, the audience, through a microphone. Not so fast, guys. That is not a true statement. That was a true statement. What I just said was true. Justin Gaethje has now embraced the media. He is the puppet master. Justin Gaethje, you guys know what I'm talking about. Benny DeRouche is going to fight Islam Makhachev. But those are the two other pieces on the board besides Justin. When Dana announces it's going to be Benny versus Islam, without saying a word, he just announced Justin Gaethje as the #1 contender. Now, we all saw that was the direction it was going, but nothing is done until it's done. There was a guy in the WWE who was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Something happened, I believe it was a car. I believe he had car problems and couldn't actually get to the event where they walk across the stage. This was 15 years ago. He is still not in the Hall of Fame. So when I tell you nothing is done until it's done, everything's a negotiation. Everything you're doing is talking. Islam started a fight with Justin Gaethje through the media, and Islam held his own. Islam has gotten more traction from his public fight with Justin Gaethje, where all of a sudden you got people jumping in. All of a sudden it's 2-on-1, then it's 2-on-2, then it's 4-on-4. I mean, all the way up to Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier backed Islam, upset Gaethje, and I believe Daniel had to take he took him golfing. Hey man, let's talk this out. It wasn't against you. It was something like, I'm real close to the story, if not exactly that. Point being, the only problem that Islam Makhachev has ever had is for you guys to know who Islam Makhachev is. For you guys to be behind that name. Perception is reality in life, but maybe never under a clear and more powerful lens than that of combat. Whoever is the most popular is the higher ranked guy. Whoever is the most popular is who the fans believe should be in there. It's one of these things. That's a broad stroke. But it works that way. And that was the only thing Islam had against him. So Islam finally stepped up in the world of social media. He didn't have to go on the tours. He didn't have to fly to LA. He didn't have to go do a week in New York, these media hubs where if you want to get anything done, you got to be in one of those two places. He did it at home. He just embraced social media, but it worked. It absolutely worked. And I bring that to you because Islam has covered more ground not throwing a single punch than he did in 3 fights, which is a whole year of throwing punches successfully. Great job by Islam. Absolutely great job. Justin Gaethje came out over a week ago, not only declared himself number one contender, he matched Islam up with Benny. Gaethje told the media, you have those two guys. I'm going to go fight for the title. You have those two guys fight. And I'll tell you right now, if I win the belt, I will make that the number one contenders match, and I'll defend against the winner. And it worked. Justin Gaethje is the puppet master. When I tell you that Justin Gaethje is terrible at media, he was. He is not. He is very good. And the pattern of Justin Gaethje, I'd love to talk to him because there's a couple of questions that nobody's ever asked him. The last 12 months of Justin's life have been very different than the whole rest of his career. He gets a huge upset over Tony Ferguson. He goes in, has the Khabib business, but then he took his oars out of the water completely. There was a 5-month period you could not hear from Justin Gaethje. There was a rumor Justin was so quiet. His social media, he's usually pretty good at posting stuff on social media. He's usually pretty good at popping into events. He's usually pretty good at keeping his name out there, calling somebody out, having just enough to say. He was so quiet, there was a rumor, which is completely false, that he was in hot water with USADA. None of that's true. I'm to demonstrate the point. When I tell you he went quiet, he went quiet. Why? Why? And what happened in that downtime? Because that's not the same guy. He's ever been as good as fighting. He's always been good at fighting. He's now doing the media. Why I'm trying to bring you guys on this journey, okay? George Masvidal. George Masvidal was just a guy. George Masvidal was clinging to his contract. Wherever his placement was, whoever the opponent was, whatever he could get to show and win, and maybe a sponsor to put something across his t-shirt, he was clinging to like everybody else. Then one day, he wasn't. He grew his hair out. He's got the 5-second knockout. He's going on a tour with presidential candidates. All of a sudden, he's a huge star. And if you went back and you looked at George and the things that he did different, you're probably going to say what I just said. He grew his hair out and he got this win over Askren, and then Diaz calls him. Okay, you wouldn't be wrong, but I would suggest you're missing a part. Because if you were right and that's all it was, then we would all be growing our hair out. And we'd all jump in the air and throw a knee and hope that it's not something you can duplicate. There was more that happened to it, and it's very relevant because nobody, aside from George Masvidal, this late, and as a veteran in their career, has gotten a bounce. Nobody. You get up there as high as you can go, and then you dig in because you know you're going to slide at some point. That's what's called a career. But until that slide happens, as long as you can get right here and just stay there, no matter how many guys in front, George got a bounce. I'm submitting for you that Gaethje is getting his bounce. And Gaethje is doing things different. His manipulation of the meat, him standing up and punching Daniel Cormier in the mouth was a big deal. And don't forget when this happened. Gaethje was in a fight with Chandler that may have been the number one contender's match. Dana said everything except making that official. And I submit for you one of the reasons that Dana did not make that official is because it wasn't necessarily true for both guys. If Chandler had won, that didn't necessarily mean Chandler was going to move on. So Dana kind of laid out and let the pieces go. But Gaethje saw what time it was. So Gaethje's got to go fight Chandler. Oh my, that's a hard ask right there. But he's going to go do it. He's going to fight Chandler. He's taking on Islam in the media. He's fighting for his position. He's wanting to make sure that if I get the best of Chandler, I get the credit I deserve, which is a number one contendership and nothing else. And Gaethje covered he crossed every T, he dotted every I, including matching up Islam and Benny. Now, even though this appears that it was just between Islam and Gaethje, that comes back to my argument, the perception is reality. Because the reality is Benny absolutely deserved everything those guys deserved. Benny has a more beautiful resume as of late than either of those guys. Benny's got some very big names in there. Islam got one, which was Dan Hooker. No, take that from Islam. No way. He did a great job. Benny's got Tony Ferg. I mean, if you want to just do this on paper, Benny's in that conversation. Benny didn't know a fight was going on. Benny did not strategically know we're in a fight over perception for popularity, and it's being done through the media. So Benny didn't throw a punch. Benny stayed the hell out of it. So then it did become between Islam and Gaethje because that's what the division was saying and nobody was arguing it. So all of life works. If there's ever a job interview and you're the only one that showed up, you're going to get the job. They're going to interview you and then just point at random and call the person over and say, hey, we think you're qualified for this. So when only Islam and only Gaethje stepped forward and nobody contested that, you got a guy who arguably on paper is the most beautiful option, which is Benny. The most beautiful option of them all. Wasn't even looked at. So now he's going to have Islam. Gaethje's given that the blessing as the number one contenders match. First off, Gaethje doesn't have that power. And second, he doesn't have the belt. But he still told the story. And nobody's argued with it. I'm bringing that to you because Gaethje's a big deal. Gaethje's a very big deal in this sport. I've been in rooms when he pops up. I mean, you judge the reaction of the crowd. He is a very big deal. He is not George Masvidal. He is not Conor McGregor. He is not the top 3 biggest star in the sport. He might turn into it. I hope that Justin Gaethje identifies what he's done differently, because there are things being done differently, and he may not know it. When he lost to Khabib and he drifted away and he went absolutely silent, I don't know why he did that. I do know it appears that he had some time to think while he was doing that. It appears that he had some time to think about what I'm going to do different because he's now doing it. And I don't know how far this ride's going to go. I don't know that most guys that come out and they're big talkers and they're in front of the media, they all go through the same thing, which is they didn't know. They didn't know people wanted to hear what they had to say. They didn't know they could move the needle just through headlines and press. And I think perhaps Gaethje just didn't know. If Gaethje's seeing it, if Gaethje is seeing it the way I'm seeing it, and we expect more and get more of this in conjunction with the way he fights, you are looking at George Masvidal 2019 being done all over again and turning into Justin Gaethje 2022.